So today, guys, you're going to hear a major rant. Sorry, you can listen if you want to, but I'm going to give you some pretty strong points in this video. And we're going to start with it. Impeller coming loose failure on the Sea-Doo RXP and RXT models, and probably GTX. And thankfully I was in a lake and not 2 or 3 kilometers out in the salt water, or it would have sank on me and I would have lost the machine. So there you see it. She's pretty sparkly in there, eh? Looks like ground up aluminum to me. Man. So check this out too, guys. They give the drive shaft snout a reverse thread, but not the impeller. Isn't that wild? And maybe this snout's to blame because the pressure potentially would have went through. Well, no, I guess it was bottomed out in here on the drive shaft, so yeah. But anyway, they made that reverse thread as my point of that story, and not the impeller for some stupid reason. All right, boys and girls, here we are again already. And boy, have I got a horror story for you guys. So, if you watched the last video, you'll know that we just recently installed a Solas prop, 3-blade. And I've gotten 1.5 hours of ride time out of this machine. And we had catastrophic failure take place. So as you can see, this $600 prop, I might as well just throw that right in the fucking trash because it's pooched, it's done. Gonna talk about a real big issue with these machines that I was not aware of until it happened. We got an old saying at work that, you know, sometimes learning is expensive. But I'm going to walk you guys through it. So, we got the Solas prop. You know, got our little notebook with it when we opened the box. No torque spec. No call for thread lock. So I went by the BRP manufacturer spec for the impeller rather, which is 95 foot-pounds, you know, give or take. So we set it at 100, and like I say, 1.5 hours of riding. 1 hour and a bit of that was on the ocean when it was really rough, so I really wasn't able to do any kind of speed or really any amount of full throttling. Went back to the lake last night. It was hot last evening, so we figured we'd go back, try to enjoy ourselves for a ride. And I made 2 passes down the lake. When I went to make my 3rd pass and see if we gained any top speed from the new Solas 3-blade, I get up to about 65, not quite 70 miles an hour, and kabang, it let this awful feeling out of the back end of it. Immediately afterwards, I pulled the key out, shut it off. As soon as I pulled the key out and shut it off, the hull started dropping in the back. I said, oh boy, now we're taking on water. You know, I was sort of out in the middle of the lake. It's a fairly deep lake, almost 40 feet deep. We sank the snowmobile in that lake, so I really didn't feel like sinking the Sea-Doo and having to get a diver in and all that stuff. So I stuck the key back in it, I started it up, and I turned it for the nearest shoreline that I could get to, and it barely wanted to push itself. You know, at the same time, I'm trying not to over rev it while I'm driving it to shore, but the impeller was so screwed up that it would barely thrust any water out the back, so I had a pretty hard time getting it in. As soon as I got it to the shoreline, you know, I popped the seat to see how high the water was. The water was pretty high in the hole here. She was, you know, right up almost over the supercharger here. So I said, oh boy, this is great. We got it to the shoreline. I walked it over to the beach where my trailer was. I put it on the trailer, pulled it out of the water, and there was a huge amount of water running out of my intake grate, drive shaft hole area. So I was like, you know, didn't really know what happened at this point, but I knew it was something major. So I was hoping, you know, best case scenario, maybe something happened to the shaft. Maybe it was the carbon seal, but there's no steady bearing on the drive shafts of these things. Basically, your pump is your steady bearing. And there's nothing in between the motor and that really keeps it in line. So what happened was this new impeller decided to unthread itself. And this is where I'm going to start off by saying the engineer behind these machines, my opinion, is an absolute moron. Had this been designed with a counterclockwise or reverse thread, so when you screw it on the pump, you tighten it this way, same as anything else. And when you're driving in forward motion, and you know, I'm gonna say it wasn't torqued all the way, but it was torqued to spec. But when you're in drive, if these things are not tight enough, they can spin it right off of your pump. So here's my pump. There's no rust, there's no corrosion, it's in good shape. I actually just rebuilt it. It's a brand new stainless shaft in there, brand new bearings. That blew to pieces around 70 or 75 hours. So when this came on threaded, it sort of come in and fell, which cut all the edges off it. This thing's like almost a ½ inch smaller than it was. So there's $600 just destroyed in a matter of not even 2 hours. I'm really having a hard time swallowing this pill because this is absolutely ridiculous. So when that unthreaded in the machine with your pump bolted, when that unthreads and pushes out this shaft in the pump, this decides to load your drive shaft up with an absolute ridiculous amount of pressure, and it shoves forward on the drive shaft, shoving so hard that it shoves on the crankshaft of the engine and wipes the thrust washers out. So I'm going to show you guys some screenshots off the Facebook forum here, just so you know that I'm not the only guy that's dealt with this problem. I'm not the only guy that had this problem, but just trying to bring some awareness here. And, you know, too bad a bunch of us couldn't get together and, you know, write a letter to BRP and say, you guys got to make a recall on this because this is an absolute design flaw. It should have never been allowed to pass. For something as simple as changing the thread direction on the shaft and the pump, this would have never happened because nobody's doing 70 miles an hour in reverse, right? When you put it in reverse, you're going slow. So why not have it that it can only come apart if you're in reverse? No. Sea-Doo decided we're going to make this that it can come apart when you're at wide open throttle so you can just absolutely destroy your machine. Now, here in Nova Scotia, there's probably not a lot of people that seen or dealt or heard of this problem, but as you can see from the Snapchats on the Facebook group there, that this has happened to numerous people, quite a few people actually, and a lot of them, it happened after they put this prop on. I've had this machine apart many times, like probably had that impeller out of this machine at least 6 or 7 times and never ever had this happen. And if you watch my last video when I installed this prop, I had to shave that with a file to get it to fit in my pump because the outside edges of it was too big. So really upsetting. You spend $600 on something, then you got to sit here with a flat file and try to make it fit a machine that it's designed to fit. So that's a big boo for Solas. Second thing is, when I got on the water with it the first time I drove it, this thing had a weird vibration into it. Like, the 4-blade, there's almost no vibration. This thing, I knew it wasn't the bearings gone in the pump because I had just rebuilt it, but it sort of had a vibration in the tail, almost like your pump bearings were bad. And I thought, well, it must just be because it's a 3-blade. It's probably not balanced as well as this 4-blade. It cuts through the water different, whatever. But I soon found out the hard way that was not the case. Now, who knows? I'm sure I got a bad prop. I've got about the worst luck in the world. But Solas should really, really get their game on here and at least make these things that they're going to fit if they're going to sell them, for one. And for two, they accept no responsibility, no warranty, no nothing, even though there's no torque spec in their book. So we just went again off the Sea-Doo manufacturer spec. But, so anyway, after I got the pump out last night, thought I was doing good. I said, I'll just stick the old one back in. It might cavitate a little bit, but at least I'll be able to drive in this hot weather and enjoy it. And then the wife got reading the screenshots that you seen earlier, how when this happens, a worst case scenario, it'll shove the drive shaft into the crankshaft, and it'll try to shove the crankshaft right out of the engine onto you. And this is just absolutely ridiculous that a machine that costs over $20,000 new is engineered and designed like this right from the manufacturer. Like, Sea-Doo, BRP, you guys need to really get your shit together because this is ridiculous. I'm really biting my tongue here because we just bought this 2022 Rxp-X and it's got almost 70 hours onto it. And I really had to laugh when we first started inquiring about this machine. They're like, oh, yeah, all the maintenance has been done, yada, 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 yada. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the maintenance schedule on one of these machines? There is none. They do not have one. So they just fix them as they break. There's no maintenance schedule saying, you got to do the bearings in the pump every 75 hours. There's no maintenance schedule saying, you got to change the spark plugs every 50 or 75 hours. There's no maintenance schedule saying, we got to put a carbon seal in every 100 hours. There is no maintenance schedule from BRP. It does not exist. So this machine has 109 hours onto it. We've had the pump blow apart, which was, $500-$600 fix for the parts and bearings and seals and stuff. We had the water pump housing explode at like 105 hours, which again is absolutely ridiculous. Can you tell me any other machine on the face of this planet that the water pump fails within the first 150 hours? Unless you get a bad one from factory, it's unheard of. Well, with these, they're all bad from factory. Just go back, check out my water pump housing video, and just look at how that piece of trash is designed. Had they made it out of aluminum, metal, something that might actually last more than a couple years. I mean, this thing gets hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold every time you drive it. So let's make the water pump out of plastic so it just, is guaranteed to fail before 200 hours. You guys that made it over 200 hours without this failure, you're either one, got a fairly new machine and you're driving it every day, putting lots of hours on it quickly, or two, you just got lucky. Because I'll almost guarantee not very many of these machines are going to make it past 150 hours without that water pump housing failure. Now, as far as this impeller failure, sure, blame it on me. You're an idiot. You didn't torque it right. All you guys out there that are so much smarter than everybody else, feel free to make your stupid comments. But at the end of the day, when you do this and it happens to you, it's going to suck just as bad. And, It's a really unfortunate thing that people can engineer and design something like this nowadays, and they just get away with it. Nobody says, whoa, wait, you can't do that because it's going to destroy the whole machine. No, fuck, sure, fine, do it. We don't care. As long as it's together and we can sell them, that's great. And, I'm not going to get started on a whole different topic here, but there's my old Polaris Scrambler sitting back there. It's got over 7,000 miles onto it. All I do is change the oil into it. Never had anything happen to that machine in the almost 10 years I've owned it. I've had this thing for 4 or 5 years now, 4 years probably. And, 109 hours, this thing has had a pile of problems. So, these are an awesome, fun machine in the summertime. They're great. They're awesome. They're a blast to drive. But essentially, if you ain't got a real deep pocket, they're just, once they get hours onto them, they're designed to just keep pulling money out of your pocket. They're not designed to be reliable and functionable on an everyday basis. And, again, it's kind of upsetting. And, I'm really gritting my teeth with this new RXT that we bought because, I know in my mind that we're probably going to have all the same problems with this machine here. And it's, it's just a matter of time. But the reality is, I believe this motor is the same from 2018. This one's a 2022. Other than the new 325s, I'm pretty sure the new 300s are still using this motor. And I'll bet you $10 to a donut, all the horror stories that these dealers, I'm sure, are aware of, they've neglected to change any of these components and make it better. This whole impeller shoving on the drive shaft thing, there's multiple things they could have done. They could have made a slip yoke on the drive shaft so that if this happens, that there is a little bit of room for give. They could have designed the end of the drive shaft that it didn't have to fit in here so deep. One thing I've never seen this spline strip on any Sea-Doo in my life. So I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that this spline is overkill for the power and stuff that's going through it. Had there been just a little bit of wiggle room in this, when that decided to explode, it would have had that little bit of give instead of shoving the drive shaft through the crankshaft of the engine. And I know this is probably a pretty big rant and a lot of you probably still aren't watching, but, the amount of people that I read on the Facebook group there that this happened to, definitely more people than just me, and it's enough people that something should be changed and something should be done about it for both parties, Solas and BRP. These are your number one recommended prop when it comes to performance, speed, and blah, blah, blah. And there's all kinds of people that installed these shortly after. Major explosion, major problem. Check out Beowulf. He's got basically the same machine as me. Did the same thing, and same issue. The thing friggin' exploded onto him, caused a bunch of damage. His prop actually ended up going through his hull and smashing his hull to pieces. Which I will say, I'm sort of thankful that I put a stainless wear ring in, because I'm quite sure had this happened with a plastic wear ring in, what went on here, that prop probably would have chewed a hole right out through the side of the pump and ruined the whole pump housing and everything. And then we would have been out, we're already out a lot of money, but could have been out a lot more. So anyway, after reading all this horror story, I come back out last night around 10:30 and I said, I gotta pull the oil filter out of this and see. So I came out, I pulled the oil filter out, and sure enough, we got sparkly material in there, which indicates that drive shaft pushed on my crankshaft hard enough to start chewing at the thrush washer at the end. And just called BRP to see what a motor's worth. Here in Canada, they want $7,800. No supercharger, no stator, no water pump, no coil packs, So they're just selling you a bare block, and they want $8,000. So I said to the lady on the phone, I said, so basically a complete engine, all the parts new, to just drop in and go with everything new, you're probably looking at handy to $15,000 Canadian. Well, you might as well just go buy another machine and dump $15,000 into something that's, 8 years old next year. And, again, just frustrating. You buy a new machine like this, high performance, big motor and stuff, you'd think it'd be designed to sort of last. You'd think Sea-Doo and BRP would want that name. We're superior, we make the better machines. But these guys can't even acknowledge that they created problems, let alone come up with a solution and make them better for us consumers that are paying the big money for these things. And, I will say this thing has had quite a life. It's tuned, it's turned up more than factory, blah, 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 blah. But, still had a pile of problems for only being at 109 hours. Now where I'm at with this, I'm going to drain the oil out. I'm going to run it through, I'm going to make some sort of a filter system. And I'm going to try to get an idea of just how much metal is ground up in there. And I'm probably going to stick the pump back on. I'm going to change the oil, and I'm going to run it again and just see if it's noisy, see if anything's, major red flag. Because I really can't justify putting a motor in a machine that only has 100 and some hours on it. It's crazy. And, I'll make the assumption, like when I called about the water pump housing for this, well, number one, they want it like $500 for that piece of plastic garbage. And number two, there's 2 of them available in Canada right now, and they're both in Ontario. So even though these are sort of starting to become a common machine, the 300s, and all machines that are 300 have the same motor, same parts on the motor, and the dealerships neglect to keep anything in stock because, oh my God, they might have to spend a little bit of money on overhead to have parts in stock. Instead, when our machines break in season, we cannot get parts for them. You're stuck waiting for a part to come from Ontario or back order or whatever the excuse may be that they can't supply normal common parts in stock at the local dealerships. Another big boo for BRP. But now, my last experience with BRP, I ordered a charge pipe for this machine from the supercharger to the intercooler. Waited 3 or 4 weeks for this part to come. They called me, oh yeah, we got it here. I paid in advance, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I want to say $280. Drive all the way up to the valley, which is about an hour drive away. Get there, and the girl comes out and lays a Prestone hose on the counter. And I just looked at her. I said, this got to be some sort of a joke. Oh, no. She said, that's the part you ordered. I said, well, that might be the part you ordered, but that's not even close to the part that I want. So I said, you can just refund my money. I don't think I'm buying any more parts here. If you guys don't know the difference between the cooling system and the air intake system, and not to mention, like, the coolant pipe's about this big around, a charge pipe, is 3.5, 4 inches round. You shouldn't even have people like that working at your parts counter. But the lady assured me today that she could probably get me all the bottom end parts for this motor if I chose to pull it out and rebuild it. So I'm still waiting for the email with what they have for a picture on their computer to go by, for one. And for two, if the parts are actually available. Because, yeah, it might show that they're on your computer screen. There's a part number for them. But, hey, when it comes time to order them and get them, they're probably not known to man. So, pretty big rant for you guys today. Appreciate it if you held out to the end and listened to it all. I feel really bad for you if you're in the same boat that I am. I can guarantee you we're never, ever, ever going by torque spec on one of these pumps again. Never going to happen. This is going back to my shop, going in the big vise. I'm putting a 4-foot bar onto it, and I'm going to come onto that thing until it's ready to blow the threads off it. And I'm probably even going to put some red Loctite into it. I'm not sure yet, but, And of course, when I called the local dealership this morning, they have never heard of anything like this. Well, you know, you guys may not have as our local dealer, but I'm sure BRP Canada knows, BRP USA I'm sure knows. So don't know what's going to happen here. I may just unload the thing, sell it, see what I can get for it, put the money towards a new one. I really can't justify spending almost 10 grand on a new engine. Probably not going to happen. So all I can say is thanks for listening. Please subscribe. Hopefully you're not in the same boat as I am. Hopefully you watch this video and get a bit of a learning experience before you go through this headache, money costly event. But you know, here we are. So again, appreciate you guys watching. I am gonna get to it, go back and get my impeller torqued in my pump, throw this thing back together, change the oil, start it up, run it for a few minutes, pull the oil filter out and see if we still got shavings or not. And when I drain the oil and do the filtration through a rag, if there's a shitload of metal, then we know it's cooked. If it's just a little bit of metal, which I'm hoping for, that it's going to be a very small amount, then maybe I might get lucky and I might be able to get a few more hours out of it. We'll see.